I've heard sometimes if your child curses, if you react to it, they might keep doing it.
Yeah.
But if you ignore it, I'm like, does that really work? And some parents are like, heck no. Because my kids still say, oh,
You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And this week we have a very special guest in the studio with us, Kiss 104.1's Dyron Ducati. This is for those folks who are not in the United States or not in the Atlanta area where we are, that's an R&B station here in Atlanta that is also part of the Cox Media Group family, which owns WSB Radio, who owns this podcast. So we're going to be talking to Dyron about his experiences really stepping up and raising his younger sister for the past 10 years. But before we get into all of that, Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us, where can they find us?
You can follow us on all major social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com, and you can find this and every episode anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's right. And if you haven't had the chance to do this, please take a few seconds today and log on to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called these days, and leave us a little rating and a review. That kind of stuff, it seems like we're begging, but we are. It's those little steps, they help us to reach more dads, and it kind of factors into the algorithm of how iTunes kind of displays where we fall, in the search and the featured pages and all that. So we'd really appreciate it. Now, Brandon, this was Memorial Day weekend, this past weekend, so kind of a long weekend. How was things for you guys?
Pretty good weekend. I mean, nice to have the long break. I had quite a busy week. I was traveling for work, so I was out in California. Weather out there is great. Compared to here in Georgia, for anyone who knows, there's been lots of really great memes about the distance between the Earth and the sun, and Georgia is about a third of the way toward the sun because it's just extra hot here.
Yeah.
So that was nice to get a little break of the temperature, but I missed the family. But then when I came back, my wife's birthday is actually yesterday.
Happy birthday.
God,
oh,
wow,
no.
Totally messed it up. It was
I'll
yesterday.
edit that out.
No, it's all good.
She's watching the live video, so she knows.
It's confusing, guys, because it was on a Tuesday, so we celebrating on a Wednesday, and then we did stuff on a weekend. It's really confusing. But anyway, happy birthday.
Happy belated birthday, Austin.
Exactly.
Austin's my almost birthday twin, because mine's coming up on
Friday.
Friday.
Yours is coming up. We'll get you next week.
Yeah,
we'll get you next
for
week.
Sure.
So we had a good time. We went, did some whining, and that is not what my son does. We drank wine, hung out, had a good time there, and just kind of enjoyed ourselves on the weekend. Got a little time away from the kid, which is always nice. And then we inevitably came back, and we're like, we want to spend more time with our kid. I can't believe we ever left him, and then he cries and complains, and then it's just a cyclical situation of wanting to get away and then wanting to come right back again, and it's just every day kind of like that. So we had a good time with it.
That's good.
I'm curious to get your take on something. It's a little bit off topic, but I promised some friends that I would talk about this. So I'm in the office the other day, and I work at an advertising company. We've got a pretty young group, a lot of millennials. So sorry for those older folks who just think millennials are the problem with everything. I'm technically a millennial, but then so is anyone who's in their early 20s as well. It's a really wide range, right?
It is, yeah.
I'm 29, you're about to be, and so one of my coworkers was bringing up I don't even know what she was like, and she's like, yeah, man, that's ratchet. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Jesse, do you know what she's talking about? Do you know what ratchet means?
So, yeah, it's what the kids say.
It's what the kids say. Okay.
They've been saying it for a few years.
Have they? Okay.
Yeah, because I remember hearing this back in, 2015.
Really?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's been around since then. It's and I'll ask that. We haven't introduced him yet, but Dyron, since you're on the mic, you've heard this term. Do you know?
You know what this is.
Can you elaborate on this for us?
Street, hood, ghetto.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so a couple of older-ish white dudes.
Redneck and ratchet.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
redneck
ratchet. Okay.
Walking around with no shoes on in the office.
Okay.
Ratchet.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So yeah, me being older than some millennials and let's just call it white.
Yeah.
I probably have no idea what this is, and that's probably okay.
It's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. And I'm getting made fun of, and I'm like, this can't be right. And so I'm doing an informal poll across the office, which is probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
And at one point was asking HR, and that was probably a really bad idea. Because we're all buddies, right? At one point, the CEO comes over. We ask him what's going on. It was a good time, and we basically learned that anyone around 30 and older had no idea what this was, or they, in my opinion, opinion, correctly identified it as a tool that you use.
Oh, no.
It's a ratchet. You're using it.
Sure.
No.
You're using it like that. And then the younger folks, because I'm apparently getting to this point now where I'm older, had of course knew what this was, and we're even, I am now using it on a regular basis, which is probably a terrible idea.
Yeah.
In context, yeah. I look back at myself and I'm like, man, that was just ratch. I'm just not even.
I am so proud of you, Brandon.
I'm just not
Good
even
job,
doing this.
man.
I am
And
so
then
proud.
a special add-on, I've also learned a net new word. I hear this is like coming up in the scene and apparently originates in North Carolina. I don't know why this is the thing, but boolin'. So I would have to say that this podcast is boolin'. It's just pretty chill. It's cool, but like not. We're not ballin'. Ballin' is like we're like whoa, like super cool and dope. But boolin' is like we're just chill, man. We're having a good time. We're cool and chill. We're just having a good time. We're chillaxing.
All right, we're boolin', working on ballin'.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Was that new to you?
No.
No, you know what boolin' is? Okay.
Yeah. I've heard about Boola.
Oh God, it's one of those moments. It's like turning on the classic hits station and hearing songs you grew up with. It's like, oh my God, I finally crossed that threshold. I'm no longer a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't even need to talk too more about it. I'm sure I've already embarrassed myself plenty. Great episode to have you as a guest. Thank you for just coming on and laughing at us.
So, without further ado, I think we'll just get to it. We got a cool guest in the audience. For one thing, one of the smoothest voices I've ever heard on radio. So I think this episode has the added benefit of probably being one of the best sounding episodes we've had on this podcast. This is Dyron Ducati. He is the midday host in Atlanta's KISS 104.1. He's been with us, how long is it? Because you were our traffic reporter before you were a host.
Yeah, so before I became a part-time host at KISS 104, I've been doing traffic reporting for about several years. Mm-hmm. So everybody here is familiar. Nobody knows my face. They know my voice. So I walk in the room, it's like, hey, it's you. Okay. So I became a part-time employee over here about a year ago, and now I'm full-time. So.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you, obviously.
Thank you.
And the reason that we have Dyron on, he doesn't, strictly speaking, literally have any children of his own. But about 10 years ago, when Dyron was 26 or 27? 27, his father unexpectedly passed away. Mm-hmm. And Dyron had to quickly fill his father's shoes because Dyron had a younger sister who needed a father figure. And we wanted to talk about all that. It's a situation that you wouldn't wish on anyone, but when you step into that situation, it really kind of tests you and kind of shows you who you are. And it's a really unique situation because you are kind of acting as a father, and that's something that I think that there's a lot of stuff from your story that all of our dads listening can relate to. So we just want to kind of talk about it. So if you could, to start with, let's go back all the way to the beginning of that story. So tell us kind of what happened.
So my father had a stroke. I was working in New Orleans in radio, maintaining multiple jobs outside of radio. My father had a stroke. He was in the hospital for about a week. They gave him a week to actually bounce back and recover. That didn't happen. But before he had passed away, I had already made the decision to move back to Georgia to help him with rehab.
Right.
He had remarried, and with the new wife, he had a child. So he's up in age. So at this time, when he passed away, he was 64 years old with a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So my oldest sibling, 12 years older, and then there was another older sibling that was 10 years older. He was strict with them. Mm-hmm. Now, when I came around 10 years after my brother, they were like, you had it good. We couldn't possibly do things that I've heard you suck your teeth. I've seen you roll your eyes. There would be an outline of our body in the wall like in the cartoons, but it wouldn't be us running, and he'd knock us into the wall. A popular phrase would, back in the day, they'd say, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. So, don't test me.
Yeah.
And that was part of one of the commandments in the household. You don't test dad. Now, when my younger sister came around, it was a whole nother story. It was almost like he had gotten easier with me, I had heard. And with her, he had gotten really, really lax. To the point where maybe he was trying to do better than he did with my older siblings, and maybe with me, less strict, and maybe so much that he was just older, though he was like in grandparent mode.
Sure.
At 64 with a 6-year-old.
Yeah, right.
So I would come back from New Orleans to visit, and I would hear him say, Zoe, please. I'm like, please?
Please what?
Please? My eyes would get big like sand dollars. Please, I never heard please. She's screaming, he's on the phone. Zoe, please, can you please? I'm like, all right.
Wow.
So when my dad had his stroke and he passed away, I was like, I knew that my sister needed me. Now, his wife, they had divorced. So at this point in time, they were just separating the weekends, sharing the weekends. Okay, this weekend Zoe will be with dad. Next weekend Zoe's with her mom. So I was like, okay, if she's 6 years old now, I remember what that memory is like and what you can hold on to with everything before that. And you might start remembering things around 3 or 4, some decent memories, vague, like spotty.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, so I'm going to come back and I'm going to fill that void. Not to be her dad, but to remind her who dad was.
Sure.
And to instill these values that dad instilled in us, and the rest of the siblings, and just have her on the weekends. That was the idea. I didn't think, too hard on it. I prayed on it. People were like, are you sure? That's a big sacrifice. For me, my dad just died.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend that. Never thought that day would come.
Sure.
Never thought that would come.
Yeah.
So it's real now. There's no waking up from it. It isn't a dream. It's very surreal. But she is important. She deserves to know who he was and to have some core values. So when she grows up, she can be an amazing person. And that was the idea. And so I stepped out on faith and said, okay, let me do the best I can. Not having a job here in Atlanta,
Yeah.
and in radio, that's not easy. And this is a top 10 market, so how am I going to make this happen?
Right.
Who knows who? And they're like, yeah, we'll figure out what we can do, Dyron. And I got into traffic reporting. So Zoe knows me as a radio personality. She's not excited anymore. When she was younger, it's like, oh, this is fun, microphones. Can I touch that? Can I talk on it?
Yep.
Now 10 years later, it's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Been there, seen that.
Other kids like, your brother's on the radio.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
Traffic.
That's just life, just normal for her.
Yeah.
Is she putting down
we're
traffic?
We're just booling.
Yeah.
Booling the studio.
Bring it back.
This is going great. I'm loving this. Yeah.
So, obviously, and we've said this before, there's no way to prepare for being a dad. Whatever that looks like, it just kind of happens, whether you plan to have a kid that you're going to raise or it just kind of unexpectedly happens. I mean, there's no training, it's just all kind of, you learn on the job.
There's no book.
So, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of books, but so far we found that they're mostly useless.
Right. There are books that are published, but however, every child is different.
Exactly.
At every age. So while you're growing up and with your children, you're learning how they navigate through life.
Yeah.
And so none of your rules will continue to stay the same as they get older.
Exactly. Yeah, we talk about that a lot.
They will change consistently. When they're 6, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
When they're 15, you can't run by the rules that you did when you were 6. All you can do is instill those values and try to stay on course with what's okay and what isn't, what's appropriate, what isn't, good ethics, good morals, no and yes, and how to react to the things that they get upset with. Because I've heard sometimes if your child curses, if you react to it, they might keep doing it.
Yeah.
But if you ignore it, I'm like, does that really work? And some parents are like, heck no. Because my kids still say, So
I feel like if my kid cursed, the first words out of my mouth, like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like,
It's gonna happen.
I'd be so taken aback, I'm just going to go back at it. But yeah, it was also
Son,
a
that's
pretty
ratchet.
touch and go for the for the first several months. It was real touch and go because I would probably just drop some F-bombs and like random things that were going on. And I'm like, he's not absorbing it. He has no idea. And my wife was like, well, what if he isn't? Like, this is the first thing he's going to hear from us. Yeah. These are the fun conversations you have while you're not sleeping.
Yeah, but it's true what you say. Like we've mentioned this before. Is like as soon as you get comfortable with them at one age, kind of you feel like you have a handle on it. Something new happens, and there's some new lesson that you have to learn, and new things you have to teach them. You never really get comfortable because it keeps changing. So your younger sister Zoe, she was 6 years old when you kind of stepped into that role.
Yeah.
I'm guessing she was around kindergarten age. So you had to get involved, I guess, on the school side of things.
Yeah, I would pop up at school. So my dad would show up at her school and he would read to the class.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And interact with them. So when I showed up right after he died and I walked through the hallways, they're like, wow, you look just like your father.
Really?
This is amazing. And the fact that you're coming to see Zoe at school and it's a crazy story. It's unfortunate. It's sad. It's heart-wrenching, but there's a beautiful side of it. I stepped in and I had to experience. And of course, when it comes to homework, I'm far away from elementary school, middle school. So watching her do her schoolwork, I'm like, oh my God, no, not those logarithms and
Logarithms, man. I was gonna be like, not the fractions, man.
But fast forward, like that's what it's been like. I don't like that.
Yeah,
and so you have to go through school all over again because there are going to be moments where they need you, and you're going to be doing their projects for them. The simple projects, you're going to be staying up late doing those projects. And I've learned that if you decide to have more children, you could try to use those same rules with them, but every child is different.
Yeah.
You know, some of them have similarities, like, oh, you're just like your brother here, you're just like your sister there. In other words, like, how in the world you came from both me and your mom?
Right. Right.
How
are you this third
Right.
thing that's like none of us?
Right.
What is that?
So
Wow. And then, something else that is on our minds as dads, I mean, we're still in the baby stage, but we know 10, 11, 12, puberty's going to come along,
Hormones.
everything's going to change.
Hormones.
What did those changes look like? It just in
I had
terms of
to
the
remind
relationship.
I had to remind myself what it was like to be 13, 14, 15, and 16. My mom, who's still alive, when I was younger, she would say, okay, remember the things that you don't like that your dad is doing. And remember things, as you get older and you'll start to understand life better, you'll understand what's important, those values and how strict he was and the lessons that he was teaching you. And you hold on to those values, but just remember what it's like to be a kid. So with Zoe growing up, I was mindful of, okay, I remember when my dad was doing this and it was really strict, but I learned later down the road that there was a reason for it. So I can, implement these plans with her. And I can try to explain maybe better than my dad was able to explain, where it was just, look, this is my law. You're under my roof. There's no question. Don't question me. Where I can, explain, like, look, you can't touch that stove because even though it looks like it's off, it could be warm. It could have been turned off and you put your hand on the eye and it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So just being mindful of a child that's curious. And my sister was bouncing off a wall. She didn't need sugar. So everybody knew her name. When we went out in stores, Zoe. Someone's like, you're looking for Zoe? Zoe, come here. We got to Disney World. And I'm like, Zoe, you can't do that. Zoe, you can't walk on benches. That's where people sit. And I'd give her consequences. And I would stick and stay firm on my consequences. So she understood that even though I was a fun brother, there were rules and there were consequences for her actions.
Yeah.
And that lasted throughout her years. Like, I was like, that's just Zoe. She's curious and sometimes she can be defiant. And I knew that as a teenager, those hormones, when things are really, really frustrating and sad for them, they get really, really sad. When things are really, really fun and amazing, they are, I'm on top of the world. Hey, like it's an amazing day, and I'm mindful of that. So I try to, treat everything as if I am aware. And I said, look, Zoe, when you get older, you're going to learn that you don't know everything. You're going to realize that hindsight, you're going to be so much wiser as a 15-year-old than you were when you were 10. I just want to help you out to understand that if you can just accept the fact that you don't understand everything, it'll be easier to navigate through life because there'll be things that you don't get and it'll be really frustrating. But if you can say, you know what? My brother told me that I won't get it now. I have a curve. I have an edge on other kids that are my age because other people parents just don't understand. I just want to go and do this. And why won't they let me be free? And too many rules. I said, hindsight, you're going to be like, wow, man, brother was right. But just understand you don't understand it now and you'll get it one day. And she was like, okay. I was like, all right. So it's just been a reminder of who I was when I was 16. So I play music that I was listening to when I was 16, like Lauryn Hill, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And it was talking about love and relationships and sex. And I was like, oh, God, no. I was like, Zoe, she's talking about having a child, but she wasn't 16 when she was talking about having a child. I just wanted to let you know that this song is what she's,
Just clear that up.
Yeah. She's talking about somebody telling her to have an abortion, and she's not 16 here. She's an adult here. But yeah, and a lot of the songs that I used to listen to, I think back, I'm like, man, why was I listening to that? Because I want to share things with her.
Yeah.
When I was 15, I was like, RoboCop. You know about RoboCop? She's like, I've heard of it. I was like, I don't know why Dad allowed me to watch that as a kid.
Yeah, it's not a kid's movie.
Somehow I got through.
There's some good scenes, Dead or Alive, You Come With Me. And then there's some very violent stuff that I saw, and I was just like, I can't watch that. I was like, how about Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure?
Also a good movie.
Or Three Amigos. She was like, all right, okay. So,
okay.
I mean, you turned out fine watching that kind of stuff.
I think so.
Yeah.
But again, we're all different.
Exactly.
I can't treat her, because she interprets things differently. She's not Dyron. But I think there have been recent moments where she's like, you know what? I don't want you to be dad. I want my brother.
Right.
But over the past decade, a simple 10 years, I've always been that enforcer, the disciplinarian.
Right.
Whenever I had on the weekends, yeah, we had fun. We go to Toys R Us. We go out to parks. However, there are consequences. So now the difference is that she's 16, so she's, as some adults say, she's smelling herself. She's like, I know what I want. I know who I am. Nobody can tell me what I need to do and what I don't need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know my life. And, you know, so she doesn't want the restrictions. She doesn't want the disciplinary actions.
Mm-hmm.
She just wants me to be fun. But
Right.
that's because she's her age.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the teenage age. I was like, look, you know, Dad said to me, when you become of age and you can leave the house, you can make those decisions. So when you have a job, it's not all your money. You know, we're going to teach you how to use your money. You're going to have to save your money.
Mm-hmm.
And so Zoe's like, I want a job. You know, my mom wouldn't allow me to have a job, which, by the way, we got to the point where my sister now lives with me. So I've enrolled her into the school that I went to, yada, yada. So now it's, instead of just on the weekends, it's every day. You know, we'll wake up every day. These are, you know, learning experiences. You know, she's like, I've never browned meat before. Well, let's cook some meat. She's like, I've never cooked bacon. I said, well, let's do this. She's like, lasagna, let's go. She, you know, so, you know, I'm just doing as much as I can for the short amount of time because I know that 16 doesn't last forever. 17 and 18 is around the corner. So there's life after high school and college. And at that point, she's going to be more on her own. You know, I'm like, look, I will encourage you, but I won't push you to do things because I don't want you to not want to enjoy life. So, you know, I want you to have fun. I want you to go to parties. I want you to be able to make decisions. Because all the time that I've been around you, I've always encouraged, you know, good decision making because there are consequences. As curious as you continue to be after all these years, as curious, you know, where it comes from, you know, putting your hand on the stove or grabbing the dog by the tail or seeing that there's alcohol in the kitchen, you know, or your friends are vaping. You have to make decisions no matter how curious you are. And you have to live with those decisions. I said, you know, live in your truth. So if you find yourself lying from time to time, express what's really going on and admit the fact that you're lying. Because if you don't, you're making bad decisions and you're lying, it's going to be double trouble. That's even worse because I'm going to find out. So accept and own up to your mistakes. And after a while, you get tired of lying. So live in your truth. And after a while, it's like, it's boring. I'm tired of saying, brother, look, I did this. Brother, I missed the bus because I overslept. Brother, I didn't study for this quiz, and so I got this on my quiz. Own your truth, live in your truth, and you'll get tired of the ills that you're making. And I asked her one day, I said, you know, so what do you think about your big brother, Dyron? She's like, you're a goody-goody. I was like, oh, I haven't heard that one in a while. I said, well, so if you think I'm a goody-goody and you're 16, that means I've done my job as a brother. That means I've become a moral compass for you. That means when you go out into the world, whenever it is, wherever it is, you know the difference between right and wrong, what Dyron would do and what Dyron wouldn't do, what I would approve of and what I wouldn't approve of, and the reasons for that. Like I said, I always give reasoning, like, hey, you can't do this, and this is why. These are the results, the possible scenarios that can come from it. So it's a learning lesson. It's a learning lesson. It's a life lesson, and it changes and evolves. But yeah, we're getting there.
Nice.
We're getting there.
How I'm curious, how long did it take her, going back to the very beginning, to understand the change in that relationship between the two of you? That yes, you're her brother, but you're also now kind of an authority figure.
It was always like that. So when my dad was alive and I was visiting, I was still reprimanding her.
Yeah.
So I came from an era, everybody's different. I came from an era where I got spanked. Just is what it is.
I did. There
wasn't, you know, fists, you know, it was open hands and belts.
Yeah.
My mom, when one time she punched me in the chest. She was like, look, you're getting too grown, you know. And she punched me in the chest in front of one of my friends. And she was telling me, hey, chill out. And I was like, ha, 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 whatever, chill out. Ha, ha, poof. And I was my friend was like, she told you. She
real now, yeah.
She told you.
Yeah.
So with Zoe, I remember one time my dad was still alive. We were out at a family function, and Zoe, being maybe 5 or 4, maybe, she bit me. And I was like, Zoe, you can't put your mouth on people. And she got upset that I was telling her what to do. So she looked at me, and she opened up her mouth and got really close and got ready to bite me again. That was her reaction. So I said, all right, and reach for my belt. You hear the clink, 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 and you hear the flop, 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 out coming out of the belt loops. And my dad is like, Dyron, no. I said, man, look, you know, what's the phrase? You spare the rod, spoil the child. I'm like, everybody's treating her like she's just a princess, and there's excuses. She's just a kid, or she just has a lot of energy. No, somebody needs to tell her, you know, no is no.
You gotta hear that no.
And there are consequences. or else she's not going to have any fear of like, it's whatever. I'm going to kick over this vase. And that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So all the while that she's known me, I've always been the disciplinarian. You know, I've always told her what to do and what she couldn't do.
Gotcha.
And when my father passed, you know, I would pick her up from her mother's. Her mother would tell me, look, let me know how she behaves in front of her. Let me know how Zoe behaves. And if we have any issues, I'll deal with it when you drop her off.
Right.
And when I would drop her off, she'd always cry because she knew we'd have so much fun. And it just was a different atmosphere. Her mom wasn't like my father and I, where we're just adventurous, living. Like we're alive, but no, we're living. So she would cry and she would get sad and she's like, I don't want to go home. And then we get to the doorstep and mom's like, well, what did Zoe do? I was like, oh, Zoe did this, she did this, and she did this. You know, I had to deal with her on all these, you know, separate times, but I've always had to be the disciplinarian.
Gotcha.
So, you know, she was able to adjust fine because she's a kid.
Yeah.
And she knows I'm the big brother, and she knows that I love her, and she always knew that I would protect her. You know, so it was easy, even though I had to tell her all the time, you know, hey, do this, do this, do this. But, you know, look, there's the law.
Right. So, you know, I'm looking at the 10 years that you have spent so far in that role.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have focused on establishing boundaries, teaching her consequences. You know, your actions have consequences. And then providing that sort of moral benchmark so that, like you said, when she goes out into the world, she can think to herself, now, what would a person who wants to do the right thing, what would they do in this situation?
Otherwise, she wouldn't have, you know, that moral compass.
Right.
You know, my older brother was like that for me, and that's what I explained to her. I was like, Darrell, he was this amazing superhero, and being 10 years my senior, like he was always protecting me.
Yeah.
And he was most of the time he was always doing the right thing, and that helped me out. And so I'm passing down that guidance and that support. You know, some people say, what would Jesus do? I'm like, what would Dyron do? What would Darrell do? You know, so you can make good decisions going forward.
Right. And now that she's 16 and getting ready to go out into the world, I guess, so where is she now? Are you having trouble in areas?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's bound to happen at that age.
Oh, yeah. I remember when she was maybe 13 or 14, we were at a Comic-Con. Loved it. Her mom wouldn't take her for whatever reason. Never. And I was like, Zoe, I'm going to take you. You know, it's this weekend. You know, I've talked to your mom. She said I could have you for the weekend. You know, we're going to live it up. And during that experience, everything was great. Everything was fine. And afterwards, we were about to get some ice cream, and something happened. And I don't know. And I understand that hormones and, you know, the periods are coming and all that. I know, but I just watching her go through these emotions, and I saw her begin to cry, and she looked mad. And I couldn't figure out what happened throughout the day, even now that we're at this ice cream parlor, getting ice cream, having fun, what went left?
Right.
And, you know, I addressed it. I said, you know, we're not doing this. You know, I guess enough is enough. Today has been, you know, it's been fun. It's time to go home. The next time that I got her, she apologized and said that she was just feeling super emotional and she couldn't understand why I explained it. And I was like, well, it's that time, Zoe. You know, you're going to have these emotions. We have an older sister, so I was familiar with hearing the stories about mom and you know, big sister Darlene going at it like, why? It's that time. So I allowed her that moment to say, okay, this is part of life. Yeah. And this is the evolution of Zoe, as any girl goes through. Some to different extremes. Right. Some a little easier, some way worse. So yeah, I saw that evolving, and I knew that was going to be another issue going forward. And boys, oh my God, boys.
Something you didn't want to have to deal with.
Yeah.
But,
so here's a little backstory. My older sister, 12 years my senior, she had a big butt. So here in Atlanta in the 90s, they had Freaknik. Yeah. So the college students were going out and partying, and the girls were wearing little to nothing. My older sister, she's of age. She's in college. She's wearing these, what they called back then, Daisy Dukes.
Yeah.
The short shorts. So I remember being a little kid and wrapping my arms around my sister's waist because I knew that she had a big butt, and I know all these guys are looking. And so I was aware. So
Yeah.
as Zoe's getting older, I'm like, Zoe, you're going to have a big butt. She's like, brother, don't talk about my butt. I'm like, it's okay. Like Darlene had a big butt. Like it is like your body is going to develop, and I'm already watching you. You're walking like this. And so I try to make fun of her, make light of the situation. I was like, so understand that men are looking at you. Men are looking at you. They're very observant. So the boys in your high school, you know, they're going through their hormones as well. They're seeing butts and boobs and legs and arms, and it's like, you know, which was interesting because in my day, we had baggy jeans.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And with the skinny jeans nowadays, with hormones and boys,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Wait, enough said, but
said.
we get what you're saying.
Right. And I'm like, Zoe, you
Wait
know,
a minute now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, those days.
Oh, yeah. We
Uncontrollable hormones.
remember.
Hormones. And I explained to her, I was like, that's going to happen. These boys are going to go crazy for you. And these men are going to be looking at you when you're out in public. You know, we go to a restaurant, I say, you know, to the waitress, how does my sister look? And they're like, 19, 20. I'm like, oh, my God.
Oh, no.
Oh, wrong answer.
And it's a female. It's a, you know, that's telling her that she looks like
Older,
that.
yeah.
And so I said, you know, and she's laughing. I was like, yeah, no. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. And so as a brother, I can't stop it. I don't, you know, I don't want anybody coming up missing.
Right.
So please be on your best behavior, make good decisions, because girls are responsible as well, not just boys. It's a two-way street, you know. So I've learned that I have to become the counselor, the teacher, the warden, the best friend, the mom, the dad, everything, you know, the doctor. Just to make sure that she has everything that she needs to function. So I applaud all those parents out there. She's not my child, but you know, having that responsibility to have to be all those people, the bad cop, the good cop, because you love them. And it's tough because you want them to have the best, and they're at ages that they don't understand that that's what you want for them. They just feel the restriction and the tight hug, and it's like, it's too tight. Dad, you know, you can let go, you know, so enjoy, as they say, as the kids want to be in your arms, they want to crawl in your head, you know, and they're in the window when you're pulling up in the driveway. And and you've had a long day, and one day it might be like, oh my God, I don't want to do this today. I just want to lay down. And other day it's going to be like, yes, here's my peace. And one day it's going to be to a point where it's like, hey, slow down. You want to come hug Dad? And that reality sometimes is, for a lot of parents, is like, they're going through their stages, even as kids, little kids, like, I want to do this with Mom. I want to do this with my friends.
Yeah.
Without you.
Right.
So, you know, you guys are going to be growing as well. When you have the next child, everything is a growing phase. Like, okay, this worked for that, and, you know, I'm better prepared. You know, when you have your first child, it's like you're learning how to be a parent. You know, and as kids, they don't know that you don't know what you're doing. Dad has no idea that this means I'm tired.
Right.
Not that I'm hungry. So why is he trying to put this food in my mouth? You know, so
every day we have to wonder.
Like, where are the subtitles?
Exactly.
Where are the subtitles? So you're just looking at the facial expressions when they cry, like, yeah, that's gas. That's gas. That's gas, baby.
We eventually learn through painful trial and error, and then it changes again.
And then it changes, exactly. So, I mean, this has been really illuminating. Just it's kind of like looking into the future, you know, so to speak, kind of figuring out, well, what are we going to have to deal with at 6, at 10, at 12, at 16? And now, you know, your sister's getting ready to go out into the world and start making decisions on her own. And we know that, you know, 17 years from now, our kids are going to be doing the same thing.
Jesse, Brandon, you guys can be doing the best as dads, and your wives can be doing the best as moms. However, when they go out into the real world, they'll make decisions and they'll make mistakes. You know, even though you've done your best, know that they are still going to make mistakes that you will not be proud of. You know, you just have to allow them to figure it out and prepare them the best that you can as they get to that point.
Yeah. I'm a little curious. You know, we have a completely different perspectives, and I think maybe one of the things about the desire to become a dad, have you felt? How have you kind of felt about that? Because you're kind of thrown into it.
So I've dated a few women with kids already that had young kids. So I've always been easy with kids. Kids love Dyron. They love Dyron. And I've always wanted kids. God hasn't blessed me yet with that. You know, I'm not in a relationship now, so now I'm really behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I work, and I enjoy that. But indeed, I want kids. I want my own. I want, you know, little versions of me, and be able to do what my dad did. I think when my dad passed away, I was like, now I for sure, I knew I wanted kids before, but now I really want to pass on the greatness that I experienced onto my kids. From my older sister, who was telling me that, you know, you're in training for manhood. You know, one day you're going to be a great man, and people are going to listen to you. Crazy what I do now. Crazy.
Listening to you,
but these things that she told me, she's like, you're going to be a great man. So those things that she told me, I would tell Zoe. You know, the things my brother would tell you know, you have to be willing to do the things today to get what you want tomorrow. You have to make sacrifices. You know, you can do anything you set your mind to. These things I passed down to Zoe. You know, my dad's restrictions and my mom's, you know, love and support. My mom was always hugging me. So Jesse, as you know, I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
You know, that's because my mom was
the same way.
randomly hugging me throughout the day for no reason. Come here, boo-boo. Like, why? So now I give that energy to my sister and others.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely want to be a dad. I look forward to the late nights. I don't think that I'll be ready, so to speak.
Right.
Well, you're never ready.
It's gonna be interesting because if it happens for you, and we certainly hope it does.
Thank
like
you.
you missed.
I need that.
Yeah, you do. Like, I mean, you missed, quote unquote, like the first 5-6 years, right? So it's gonna be brand new for you in a way.
Yeah.
And then maybe it'll catch back up, and you'll be like, now I'm starting to feel. You're gonna hit a groove somewhere around 6, and you're gonna be like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, so people our age have already
this.
had kids. A lot of them have already had kids, and even experienced life to the point where, you know, the relationship, the marriage didn't work out.
Yeah.
You know, so then you go through life thinking, okay, so how do I navigate co-parenting?
Yeah.
And making sure that works, because life isn't perfect.
Yeah.
You know, an accident happens and your spouse is taken away. Life goes on, and you have to figure out how to parent, and then someone else comes along and it's life, and you got to figure out how to allow that person into your heart and into your child's heart to help you and allow your child to be as best as they can. So life is, as my dad would say, life is what goes on while you're making plans for it. You know,
that's awesome. I love that. So so one last question that I'll leave us with. You know, you brought up that quote from your dad. What is, looking back on the 26, 27 years you had with your father, what was maybe the most important impression that he left on you that influences the way that you handle your sister now?
For me, it has been to live. And so, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we're all living, but, you know, how many of us are really living?
Sure.
My father was very adventurous, very spontaneous. He's like, all right, Cindy, get the kids. We're going to Chastain Park. Lenny, for what? Because we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
We're going to grill randomly, not planned. We're going to go to Stone Mountain. We're going to watch fireworks. That wasn't part of the plan. We're going to go to Hilton Head Island. You know, it wasn't part of the plan. So just to live. And I want her to experience that love of life. Now, when my father passed away, and I had been in New Orleans for 10 years at that point, and I learned in New Orleans they celebrate people's lives when they die. It isn't more of the mourning aspect. It's a celebration of life. And so my father passed away. At his service, I said, you know, this is a celebration of the journey. You know, he had a good time, a great time. He was still in the gym the week that he, you know, had his stroke.
Wow.
You know, the nurse was like, you know, your father looks great. He looks like, you know, but on the inside, things weren't great because of the stroke. But just to live. And so I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, and I enjoy that. And hopefully I pass it on to Zoe. And she becomes an adult. She's like, living my best life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, based on the time I've spent with you here at the station and this conversation, I have no doubt that she will.
Yeah.
One bonus question, maybe.
Okay.
I just had having a thought, because this is a perspective that Jesse and I don't have. Kind of being toward I don't want to say the end of parenting by any means, but like you're closer to a whole different stage than we are. And I feel like when I'm thinking about being a dad, and you know, this is I assume kind of true for anybody who wants to be a dad, you feel like there's a really important role that you're portraying and that you're kind of shepherding someone through, and there's immense value in being a dad and having a child and supporting them. And then there's a lot that you sacrifice to go do that.
Wow.
You could have stayed in New Orleans and had a life, and you could have done that whole thing, and you could have not been involved whatsoever, but you are. Do you kind of get a sense, does it feel like, man, I did this and I could have done something different, but you know that you have done something that was just wonderful and been like a really great thing that you don't even think about trading it?
Well, because I did what I did in the first place, it's always been consistent. So in our field of work of radio, opportunity. If there's an opportunity in another city, in a bigger market, to take it, and I've been, asked, hey, would I go to New York? Would I go to LA? Would I go to Chicago? And every time it was no. My answer is no, because the reason I came home was just in case my sister needed me.
Yeah.
If I'm in LA, if I'm in New York, for the distance reason, that's not beneficial. I can't get there fast enough. Me being here in the same state, and at the time I was thinking the same, side of town, this is where I need to be until she is of age. Once she's of age, I can, I'll look at some options if given that. And I knew the sacrifice. A couple of days ago, we were driving around, and I said, Zoe, I'm really appreciative of your existence. And she's like, why? I was like, well, because of you, I have a full-time job in radio. I've got my midday show.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been doing since I got into radio. I'm a radio person now. I'm not a traffic reporter. Right. Life happened where I was just a traffic reporter until something else changed. I've been putting forth all my effort, and I said, because of you here, I'm here. Dad, grandparents are like, you could make it in Atlanta. And I'm like, nah, it's not that easy. Zoe, I'm here, and it's because of you. So the sacrifice I was always aware of, and I've always been getting the pat on the back. But I'm like, it just made sense to me. Everybody's different. For me, that was worth the sacrifice. Especially in a moment of pain and hurt of losing somebody that has fed you. Yeah. Because you got to remember, like as a kid, you eat for free every day.
Yeah.
All of those clothes, that's your parents' clothes. They bought that. That's their money. The lights, the water. So you're living for free for many, many years. So to have that appreciation, for somebody that has, done that for you, sacrificed for you, it's all worth it. And it's going to be frustrating when your kid is being, mouthy, and you're like, you eat for free every single day.
Yep.
You eat for free every day. Can you imagine not having to come out of your wallet ever anymore?
Those were the days.
The grocery store, you just pick what you want, and you walk out, and it's like, la, 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 la. I'm going to eat this when I get home.
Got that candy. Yeah.
Yes. No, but they don't get that, but that's, because they're kids.
Yeah.
And you forget that they're eating for free because, it's your job.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility. You're in charge of a little human.
Yeah, so. I feel like it was just like a nice thought. For me, and maybe I'm just being selfish on it, but we're so new into it, Jesse, and I'm just like, we're never going to be thinking about. You're already making
sacrifices, though.
We're not going to be thinking about 18 years, the way it's going to feel.
Yeah,
you're already making sacrifices.
Yeah,
you've already made sacrifices of things you probably wish that you didn't have to make, but you made them because of another human. Both of you are going to make some sacrifices. You're like, man, I could have done this, I could have done that. Want to go on vacation, but because the baby is always crying, we can't do this. We can't go to the movies. I really want to see that movie in the theater. We can't find anybody to watch the kid, so it's like, and then you feel bad when you're not with the kid. As you mentioned, you feel bad when you're not with the kid. You want to go back, and you're like, oh, God. And then there's like, oh, why do we feel bad because of this? And they're not even appreciative.
Yeah.
You're going to make sacrifices for years to come. And even after they're 18 and they're in college, you're still going to be making sacrifices. Sometimes they might not be appreciative because they don't understand it yet. But that's life. And then one day, as I told my sister, I was like, I was once where you are. One day you'll be where I am.
Yeah. So I just like to remind myself. It gets hard on a day-to-day basis, Jesse. You and I.
I know.
And, and too, not that you're in a different situation. Every day is a struggle, and it's like, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel that way every day, but appreciate the thoughts.
Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work. You're doing great.
Thanks.
You could be doing way worse, man.
Hey, it's true. It's true.
There are a lot of different options that you could be taking that just like, man, Brandon, why?
I know. But when my son
you
throws
set the
his
baby
breakfast,
outside because he was crying outside? The neighbors, man.
It's warm outside. It's fine.
So I think that's a great place to wrap it up today. Dyron, thanks for taking the time with us this morning to sit down here in the studio with us. I think that, like I said at the beginning, yours is a story that I think a lot of dads could take some lessons from no matter what stage they're in, no matter what their situation is. Parenting looks different for every family, No two dads are alike. And I thought that your story was so incredibly unique, and the way that you were able to, to give your little sister those values and fill those shoes and be the dad that she didn't have anymore. I just thought that was so cool, and I'm sure our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. So we really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Dadsplaining. Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us one more time, where can they find us?
You can find updates on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. Please give us a like and a follow. You can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com, and you can find this and any episode anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's right. And if you have a question that's on your mind as a dad or as a mom, if you're a mom that's listening, a topic that you'd like us to cover, reach out to us. Let us know. On a week-to-week basis, we're covering different little things. Sometimes it's helpful tips. Sometimes it's really serious, scary stories. Sometimes it's just us having fun. So we wanna meet your needs. Basically, if you're listening to us, we want to be helpful in some way. So feel free to reach out. So Brandon, I thought next week it'd be kind of cool if we talked about summer safety. Here in the United States. The Northern Hemisphere, because I know we have some listeners in South America. It's getting to be summer. It's getting to be hot. Families are out hitting the pool. So maybe we can tackle some safety tips, things to do to keep your kid cool and hydrated and safe and all that fun stuff. So be sure to tune in next week. We'll talk about all that. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And hey, Brandon, why don't ants ever get sick? Because they have antibodies.
Hey, the body of an ant is an ant body. There it is.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.